Welcome back to The Death of YouTube, the podcast where YouTube goes to die. What am I saying?
That's it. Yep. It's YouTube was here and then it died, and now here we are. Not on YouTube, unless you're listening on YouTube, in which case I think YouTube wins.
Yeah, no, it definitely felt a little bit hypocritical uploading the first episode to YouTube today.
The strength of capitalism is it is able to subsume all criticism within it. Same thing with YouTube for similar reasons. YouTube is very happy to host your criticisms of it.
So we were talking about how to do the next few videos in the playlist, because we've covered before YouTube, we covered Toast Launcher, which was kind of like about the college years, and then Gary the Misanthrope had sort of like a whole story to it. But now we're entering this era that has a couple of like really important, like major tentpole videos in Doormonster lore, but also a bunch of other ones that don't matter at all and are really short. Going through this step by step results in a bunch of episodes that aren't interesting. So we're actually just going to cover 8 videos in one podcast today.
Which is a crushing blow to all 15 of these Steam Summer Sale fanatics out there who watch this religiously before every Steam Summer Sale, like the Yoda's Christmas guy.
I think this will be fun. I think this will be kind of, you know how we were talking before about how having to cram the video into a single DV tape made us much more efficient. Like the fact that we know we have to fit 8 videos into this episode, I think will make us only hit the good parts of anything that we would have talked about otherwise.
Right. This constrains me away from my darkest impulses, which is to be useless.
just to go off on random nonsense.
Yeah.
Because also this time period spans like I want like 2 or 3, somewhere between 2 and 3 years.
Right. So just looking at this playlist, right? Zucchini Rhubarb is 12 years ago. Crazy, gross. And then Christmas OCD is 9 years ago, right? But also Minecraft is Intense is only 8 years ago. So realistically, we're looking at 4 years and 8 videos.
And again, that was mostly just me trying really hard to be a YouTuber without really trying really hard. That's the wrong word. Thinking real hard about it. I was certainly dedicated to the idea. I had not yet figured out how to be okay with releasing something that I did not consider perfect yet. That was really my big issue.
I think there's also some other things to look at, like basic life scaffolding, like, having a job.
Yeah, that's true. It was very much a hobby. We were still figuring out, like, I don't know. It's really weird looking back on it because I got so used to it being this weekly thing. I don't know what I was doing in between videos at the time. I find it hard to remember a time when I did things that wasn't working on video.
Right, it's weird. And even looking at it, right? Like, just like the impetus for these videos. One of them is a Ricky idea. 3 of them are spurred on by unfortunate events in my life. And then the other 5, I think, are you just going, I guess I should make a video about something, and it just kind of
I think that is what it mostly was. It was there were so many times where it was just like, man, it's been a long time. I should do something.
Yeah.
But there were some of the ones we released during this time, like I said, turned into like the running Doormonster jokes.
Oh yeah, they're
lasted
important
for the rest until now. So
right, and the other ones were Happy Apocalypse 2012. So
right. So I guess let's just start at the beginning and just kind of go through each one and hit the important points. So we're starting with Zucchini and Rhubarb. This is the often told famous origin story of me asking, I think on Facebook, I was just like, hey, does anybody have any funny sketch ideas so I can make something? And Ricky commented, one guy selling zucchini milkshakes on one side of the street, another guy selling rhubarb milkshakes on the other side of the street. It writes itself.
And it does, which is great. But I do think what's really important here is this is the first video that resembles a Doormonster video. This is the first Doormonster-shaped video. We've got the quips, we've got the back and forths, we've got an absurd premise. We're missing some of the observationality that we like in some of our sketches. But we have the absurdism down.
Yeah, even the shooting, like, we grabbed the camera, we went out in front of your house, and we shot this sketch, like, as fast as possible. Like, we did film this the way that we would film the other ones later, I think you're right. And it does have that same setup of just, like, close up, wide, and then violent punchline. This was a gunshot gag, too.
This is the very first gunshot gag, yeah. Like,
I think, actually, so I think Rodriguez El Casoro has to be credited with the invention of the gunshot gag.
You're right, that's true. That's another thing I was going to point out. Like, at what point in the Stretch of 8 videos did you actually swear off animating for good?
I don't know. I was actually looking at some of them just today, and I was still animating during some of this period, like up through 2013-ish, because I actually animated a Fable thing as part of like promoting the guards themselves Kickstarter. So the first handful of these videos, I was still occasionally releasing animations also.
Yeah, we can say that there's only 2 pieces of content every year, but really there's other sources that you're working on.
That's what else I was doing. I was just doing other work.
always. But I do think Zucchini Rhubarb, like we introduced the live action gunshot gag, we got our back and forths, we have our first major equipment failure. That's a very door monster shaped occurrence.
Yeah, no, we really jumped into it without knowing what we were doing, because I had done Toast Launcher and I was like, I know how audio works now. So we showed up and I think we tried plugging it directly into the camera, and that's when I stopped ever trying to do that. Actually, we tried this one time, and something about the cable went wrong, and the audio sounded terrible. And I don't remember. Did I? I think I tried having you guys come over to re-record the dialogue.
It's possible.
But it just wasn't working. Like, it just wasn't sounding good, and I was like, this isn't worth going back and doing that much work to fix this. I'm just going to use what's there and release it. It was a good early test of everything, and it feels like a checkpoint in my life, I guess. I don't know why. I've got very like solid, bright memories of this, of like you, me, and Ricky out in that street filming this video and thinking like, this is correct. This is how this should be going.
Yeah.
And then we have the technology right after that.
Right. Random wrap-up thoughts about Zucchini Rhubarb, because this is also like our chance to like chronicle any random trivia that later digital historians won't be interested in. This is our very first, and I would say actually relatively rare, just complete production gaffe of us knocking over the pitcher and tape rolling out instead of milkshake.
Right. We had also the guns were a weirdly high quality for this video compared to other ones, because I borrowed them from my dad. They weren't real. The guns are never real.
Never real, actually. Looking back though, nowadays, even in my own front yard, I would probably not shoot a sketch about guns like this.
Yeah, we couldn't have done this like 10 years later, could we?
Well, we shouldn't have done it 10 years back.
We probably shouldn't.
Actually, for a long period, up until one very, very specific video, our fake gun handling is premised on the idea that nothing can go wrong. And that's true until it does. But that's for later in the playlist. Didn't you also, this is like early VFX, Kyle, right? Like, we didn't actually synchronize our death drops correctly.
Oh, yeah.
And you had to like...
No, you're right, I did. I went in and like fudged that because, yeah, you guys didn't fall at the same time. It would have been funnier if you both like hit the ground simultaneously. So yeah, I had to like go and like chop the scene in half and retime you guys. That was like an early working with masks and After Effects and stuff. I always forget that I was like manipulating video footage that early just to like make it do basic things, not even like doing anything flashy, just like, oh, this didn't turn out how I wanted and we can't go reshoot it, so I got to figure out how to change it.
This has always been like one part of your secret superpower is like having the ability to just rewrite reality just in your back pocket a little bit.
I feel like I have the determination to. I think that's sort of if I have any skill, it is definitely knowing what I want and refusing to not have it.
Yeah. Agreed.
And it is what caused these videos to take so long back then, and I did eventually have to learn how to balance that out. But I think I just ended up sacrificing sleep instead.
Yep, that's true.
About the gunshot gag, just before we move on, it's interesting how that became like our signature thing. We don't really have like shocking content. I wouldn't say our videos are particularly violent or disturbing or anything, but having come from Newgrounds did something to my brain just slightly, where it made this possibility of over-the-top violence just the funniest thing that I had ever seen.
That checks out. Yeah.
But also there was I definitely have always had this little thought of like, should I perpetuate this kind of thing that everybody, this desensitization sort of thing?
It's a good impulse to not perpetuate hyperviolence, but also it just kind of got like, I don't know, I felt guilty about it, not from an ethical standpoint, but from a personal, moral writer standpoint. We've become known for this gunshot gag, right? But it's really what we've become known for is punchlines. And eventually, we use gunshot gags, or we border on using gunshot gags instead of punchlines, and that felt lazy to me.
Because as a comedy tool, it was just this sudden thing that ended the scene abruptly and unexpectedly.
Yes.
But then, yeah, we started wanting to not do the literal gun, but then it felt like the ending still needed to have the punch of a gunshot. You know, like that was sort of the thing we've always tried to match, even if there isn't a gun in scene.
I would say like one of the most unappreciated, hardest parts of sketch writing is getting a punchline that fits inside 1 second, because that's the time you have to actually like register like a shock laugh.
Even filming, people would like do funny stuff in reaction to whatever happened.
Yeah, you can't keep it.
And we'd have to be like, it's not going to make it in because it's got to cut right after that. I do think that just came from just Newgrounds making sudden violence funny.
That's very funny. Actually, just being influenced by cartoons is such a huge difference.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it changes the sort of the design a lot. And it was like this entire like the 3-shot setup and everything was still all very reminiscent of like Legendary Frog cartoons and stuff. I was just
true.
making those in real life for a while. I think so. The next video in the list, Ode the Technology, I think was my attempt to venture more toward like a Julian Smith kind of idea.
Sure.
But I still didn't have the tools or the skills to do that. I don't think it's a bad script. It's a video of me yelling at my computer, where I'm like having a fight with the computer, and the gag is that like it cuts back to the computer and it has some kind of a response, and then I respond to it as if it said a line that it didn't actually say, which is also something that we've kind of repeated. My only issue with all the technology is that my acting is like very not developed yet. Like it's hard to watch for that reason.
I got to be honest, I have not watched Ode the Technology in upwards of half a decade.
I don't know if you have to.
Every time I look at the thumbnail, I wonder, is this one with Squire?
Right?
We just cast Squire as the computer eventually, so...
Yeah. You know, everybody has the tendency to be like, you know, what is my style going to be? What is my, like, identity going to be when I'm writing and stuff? It will all be there.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you want it to be or not. Like, I didn't mean to make a weird British computer as, like, a recurring character, but he keeps showing up, right? Like, there's something in my brain that makes a strange, blue-colored, evil, Loki-style computer being show up in my videos. Even if I remove the last one from existence, I will accidentally make another one at some point, and I don't know what to make of that.
That's just normal to a Kyle. Why not? Yeah.
It's just weird that, like, even in some of these old things, like, there are early versions of things that did happen later in meaningful ways, even if it's not a direct connection. I guess just, I don't worry too much about planning anything, because humans just sort of, like, make all these weird connections by accident.
Right. Part of it is also just, like, luck. When people write a lot, when they make things a lot, they fall into patterns, right? And I think we were lucky that some of our patterns that we fell into before we were cognizant of them were just funny. Good for us, I guess.
So the next one is, like, definitely an important one.
It's decently important, isn't it?
The next video was actually specifically influenced by Julian Smith, but also I think was the first one where it was just like one of us had this weird experience and we were like, we have to make that into a sketch.
Right. This is weird because it's an absurdist sketch, but also it is observational because this happened to me.
Just an example of how much ripple effect you can have in someone's life, I guess.
Yeah, this is...
You want to tell the story?
Yeah, so I'm at Baylor. I'm in... there's something called the Baylor Bubble, which is like 3 or 4 blocks around campus that's student housing and is usually pretty okay. This is as of like, I guess like, it's worth pointing out like 2011, 2012. Waco has changed significantly
Waco,
since then.
Texas pre-HGTV shows, right?
Right, yeah. Chip and Joanna Gaines, they were bubbling along in the background at this point, but they had not popped into a cultural phenomenon yet. I lived right outside the Baylor Bubble because I could not afford to live inside the Baylor Bubble. I mean, like, literally the street where we would consider that to stop, I lived directly across it. There is one grocery store, one H-E-B inside this bubble. That's kind of glorifying it. It's really 2 convenience stores like stapled together. The H-E-B closed at midnight, so I would go over at like 11:45 and try and pay for Hot Pockets and dimes because that's the kind of college student I was. But so one of these nights, 11:45, I just hear from behind me, "Hey, you want to buy a knife?" And I turn around and this guy has a knife in my face.
How big was the knife?
not a Bowie knife, right? But like on the order of, I would say it's like this wasn't like a pocket folder. It definitely looks bigger in retrospect when it's in your face and potentially a threat. You go, that's the biggest knife I've ever seen in my life.
That's true. Well, I'm also curious, was the knife clean?
It was actually.
Okay.
Because as it turns out, he was literally trying to sell me the knife, but instead I just said, no thanks, no money, and just scuttled into the HEB, and he just like kind of went off disappointed. So
what if he was just like a Cutco salesman that just had just kind of gotten started first day on the job,
just like girl bossing really hard in that parking lot of 45? It's possible. The most unlikely way for this story to play out is the one that it did.
Yeah, I remember you telling me this story, and just that little seed is what grew into the entire extortionist hobo character. Obviously,
right?
Like every time I rewrite the hobo, I go back to that. Like that's the whole thing. It's like this is the core why it's funny. It's like. It's unexpected and somehow not less threatening.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
even though it should be.
Well, it's like there are ways to hustle knives in a parking lot, right? Holding it by the grip, by the handle, blade up in the air, and addressing somebody from behind with the word knife is not it. Like,
if you genuinely weren't trying to be threatening, why'd you do it that way?
Right. I don't know. It's very funny. Like that it just happened this way.
I combined it is the thing. Like this is how I usually try to recreate things that I like. Is sort of what ends up happening. Is I do my own take. I see somebody else do something. I'm like, that's hilarious. I need to do that. Like I need to also do that thing. So all of my creations are mostly just me attempting to imitate someone else and not quite doing it exactly, and then people think it was my idea. That's mostly how it goes.
That's how all art has been since the dawn of art.
That makes sense, right? I'm probably being too hard on myself. So I combined. I took your idea was like sitting in my head, and then at some point, Julian Smith released this video called Mr. Timn. It's this nonsense video of somebody like washing their dishes, and then a strange man pops up in their window and has a very hobo-esque conversation. The man, responds rationally, and then the weird little gnome in his garden just takes whatever he says and runs the opposite direction with it.
Right.
And that was the thing that I like latched onto and really thought was funny. And so I wanted to do that. I needed a premise, and you gave me the premise. So I put those two things together and basically just made my own version of that character and thought this will just be a funny one-off video to do with this guy that like seems to like he's mugging you, but is actually just doing a really bad job of trying to sell you things you don't want. Also, Jeffrey's in it.
Right. This is our first. I guess Jeffrey actually hasn't shown up in a video yet, right? This is Jeffrey number one. And this begins the legacy and story of LeBron.
Yes.
So named by Jeffrey, I don't know when, like a few years from now, right? Like down the line.
Jeffrey apparently just like his headcanon name for the character was always LeBron. He
right,
just never
that's
said
true.
anything about it.
And that wasn't a joke we made up. We're just like, and I don't know, I guess we need to differentiate this. It was one of our multiverse videos where I think there's a Jeffrey and a not Jeffrey or something. It's like, oh, well, that's easy because that one's LeBron. It's like,
it's actually too bad. The moment that he revealed that was supposed to be on camera, but it was in a community comments that we failed to record twice. But yeah, it was also, Jeffrey just nailed it. He just did a good job. It was just the first time. I don't even know if we hung out much before that, because he wasn't in videos before that. We must not have gotten together that much. He actually did live nearby. That's why he's in the video. But I guess he had a full-time job. We just didn't see each other that much, and we somehow worked out this video. And again, holding weapons in a very public area. This was just in the Art Institute parking lot by a highway.
I do have to think, though, that if there's a place you're going to see weird people doing weird stuff with things they shouldn't be, Art Institute parking lot.
Yeah, that was definitely my reasoning. The outfit was also something that I just kind of threw together out of whatever I had.
Is this a Party City beard? Like, where did this beard come from?
I actually got that beard for a class. It was a group project where for some reason somebody was pretending to be Bob Ross, and the entire costume was that beard.
All right.
And he didn't look like Bob Ross in any other way, and I was charged with buying the beard, so I just had this beard on hand.
That's funny.
That was it. And then I don't know where I think the bowler hat I think that was the only piece I went and bought for this costume.
Shout out to the Diggory plushie.
Yeah. I don't know why I put it there specifically. I just thought it added something interesting to the character if he had this weird doll hanging out of his backpack. And sure enough, we kind of like revisit that later. Like it turns into his weird like interaction with various puppets and plush toys.
Yeah, it's true.
Kind
it's
of
true.
becomes a character thing. Mm-hmm. It's also implied in universe that one of the other hobos we haven't seen looks like that.
Yeah. Yeah. A mainstay of the Hoboverse is always you cannot answer questions without providing more questions that are more frustrating.
Yes, that's true.
And I think this falls into that. Like, of course we set up hooks for more annoying future things for us to do and us to not answer.
Yeah, I think that was actually the big lesson from this one is really just like if you throw out enough nonsense, you can reference like 25% of it later and it will feel like you're weaving together this whole tapestry. And speaking of, the immediate video following that one is Self-Fulfilling Idiocy.
Right.
Which was, in fact, just me going, no one is here, but I want to film a video. How do I do it with only me? And so I came up with the time travel, which is funny because I'm back to doing that now because I'm alone in New York.
Funny indeed. Everything, one of many circles we will complete on this journey. While I think Zucchini Rhubarb is the first door monster shape sketch, this is the one that has signature door monster timing down. Self-Fulfilling Idiocy has some really, really laser quips in it.
One of them was a mistake.
Really?
I actually there was one that I cut too fast, and I remember after uploading it realizing that I had like cut those two things too close, and I think it's one of the parts you're remembering and talking about, actually. It's like where one of the Kyles is trying to talk over the other one, and then immediately like realizes that the thing he said was entirely wrong and just goes like oh or something, and but it like almost is inside another line, and it was a mistake, and I actually wished I hadn't done it when I'd first put it up. I was like, oh, I messed that up, but I didn't want to re-upload it because like uploads felt much more precious at the time.
Right.
But yeah, no, it actually ended up turning into like, now I do that kind of stuff intentionally all the time. I also think this was like, it almost leans cinematic just because I had to like get creative with the shots because of, I just had to think about them much harder, I think. There's technically like 6 characters that I had to space out.
This is like definitely the first major effects video.
That's true. And it's like, it is sort of like the effect everyone starts with. That's what everybody does. You take 2 pieces of footage and cut them down the middle and put them together, and it looks like there's 2 of you or whatever it is you're trying to do. But I am kind of happy that even in this one, I pushed it a little bit further. There's like 1 or 2 shots where they overlap or something. Like it still isn't like the really basic, just like locked off wide. I guess I'm kind of impressed with myself from them because there's shot composition going on still, even though it's using split screen stuff. Also, fun thing, Tom Ska watched this video, and I know because YouTube would like tell you stuff. I got an email saying Tom Ska had liked the video. Like it was
weird.
Like YouTube notified me about it.
Kind of violatory, actually, but okay.
Yeah, a little bit. That's probably why they stopped doing it. He subscribed right afterwards too. But after that, he started making time travel videos, and since then, I've had people comment on Self-Fulfilling Idiocies being like, this reminds me of such and such Tom Ska video, and I'm like, I did it first. He got it from me.
Yeah, but when you're messing with the timeline, who matters about first, you know? That's the question.
I just want the record set straight.
Which I think we will...
And in 2 videos, we made Refresher Round,
right,
and Freddie Wong made the same video like a week later.
Yep.
I've been ahead of the curve all alone this whole time. If you get a jump on trends in the forest, but no one's around to watch your videos, doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. If you participate in the trend but don't go viral, did anybody even really like and subscribe?
There you go, you got it. Also in there was Steam Summer Sale, which was I think was just, I was like, oh, this is topical. This will get views.
First canonical appearance of Reed?
Yeah, Reed's actually, I think he's in Gary the Misanthrope technically, but he's obviously front and center in this. And this was just this dumb little, this was a visual gag. That's all it was. We shot it in a day. I put it up and thought it might get views. It didn't. It now has 158,000. It should not.
It's like, 157,000 and like 400 more than I would expect.
Refresher Round was a pretty big one, actually. Like, Refresher Round might be the one I forget about the most, weirdly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't deserve that.
It kind of feels like a later sketch. It's got production value. It's got a solid concept. It's got like a real shooting, right? And it's stuck before our weekly sketches, which is too bad.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is like well ahead of its time. I drove to Baylor one weekend because we were going to come up with a bunch of sketch ideas. And instead, we spent 3 days watching Lost.
Yeah.
And then played Soul Calibur a little bit. And then on the drive home, I had the idea for this sketch.
Right. Also, you rescued a turtle. You just came up to just see, like, what's this whole Baylor thing about? When one of my friends, like, screeches to a halt in her absolutely beat to hell car, throws open the door and says, "Get in, we have a turtle."
That's right.
What? And they
And
just
let me
like
tell you, that sold me on college.
right? Very misleading introduction, I'm sorry to say. But yeah, we played Soul Calibur, during which time I was a scumbag.
And then Ricky showed up for that one and was a champ. This was the first video where I think I almost died of heat stroke.
Right, I was about to say, what I remember mostly is like, if you look at how red Kyle's face is, that's not makeup, that's not like physical exertion, that's death.
That's really the most important part of the video. Is we zoomed in close and did all of our jumping around in one go. And after I did mine, I was about to pass out, and Ricky basically had to carry me inside and feed me water so that I didn't lose consciousness.
It's something that you don't learn about Kyle until you've been on a film set with Kyle, is he just turns off biological needs until the filming is done, including things like avoid heat. That's a biological need, as it turns out. Eating, drinking, not relevant to Kyle during filming.
Well, that's the catch. I turn off the signal, but it doesn't make my body like any stronger than it was.
Fair. Yeah, actually, yeah. He just disables the warning lights, yeah.
Right, exactly. And then after I'm done, it's like, wow, I'm really hungry and I have to pee super bad.
This is also the first one, I think, filmed outside of the art studio, right? Joe's, isn't it? It's in
No, that's actually behind Wonko's, the place that you mentioned earlier with no context. So now it's come back around.
We
yeah.
have used so many back parking lots.
Yeah, you know why that happened? That's a Freddie Wong thing, I think. Something about his videos got it in my head that's where you film sketches. Weird industrial buildings because they look cool, and they do.
Actually, like this one looks a lot like a Street Fighter stage, right? You just need like a beat upable car in the background.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very versatile set. And then after that, there were 2 more videos that were each a year apart. So at the end of 2012, I had a terrible year for just a lot of personal reasons. That was when like depression first started setting in and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the world was gonna end,
right?
Because of the Mayans or some shit,
right?
I found myself in December and realized I hadn't made a video for I think a year, and I'd been prepping for the guards themselves, and I think we had collected money, and I had released a Fable 2 experience, like the little video to promote the guards themselves, but I hadn't really done anything else other than that, and so I made this one little video that was just like making fun of the Mayan apocalypse thing, and there's not a lot to it. I think it's funny. Like I think it's
cute.
It's a cute little video, but it's very unremarkable. And then we filmed the guards themselves for a year. So between Happy Apocalypse 2012 and Christmas OCD is that entire process. We filmed the whole feature film. That was also really hard. 2013 was pretty rough too. But by the end of 2013, things had started looking up, and we had filmed the whole movie. And I think that's when I don't know. I definitely spent that whole year kind of reassessing, like, how much do I actually want this? Like, I needed to get this done because I need to graduate college and all this stuff. But then once that had cleared up and I think I had some time, I started remembering back to, like, filming the short stuff and how fun that was. And I started feeling kind of like that feeling you get, like when you've leveled up a bunch in D&D and you're like, I bet I could go beat up those goblins real fast.
Oh,
now.
yeah. Right.
So that was sort of the idea. I was like, I bet I could make a video like in a day. And so that's what I did. I came up with an idea and I went and shot another video by myself. And it was a little bit weird of an idea. Like it's not very conventional. It's much more like a YouTube sketch, like something you'd see Julian Smith make or something. It's not a conversation. It's like mostly physical, like visual comedy. Yeah. And there's a scene change and like lighting and stuff. But I was proud of it. It gave me some confidence back at the end of that year because I was able to just. I ran off of that for a long time after that. Like
That's
the fact
interesting.
that I had been able to do that alone in 24 hours, and I threw cereal everywhere.
That's always fun. Yeah, you gotta love that.
Which was fun.
Yeah. Back to your toast launcher origins.
Yeah.
Gotta be throwing wheat products around, or else what are you even doing?
And that's all of them. That's all 8 videos. That was Christmas 2013.
We have kind of like radio silence until Halloween the next year, right?
Then everything kind of went quiet. I graduated. I had to get a job of some kind, and I got a job working at this startup company in Austin.
Oh, I forget that you did that, right?
Yeah, I forget too. And I hated it. Like I had about 3 solid years of being pretty depressed before I actually started doing the YouTube full time. And this was definitely the more like desolate version of it, like the resignation, I guess, moment where it was just like, I guess this is just what happens now for the rest of my life. Like I had finished college and I had done everything that people said to do. I was like there was a finish line that had been set out for me and I was running for it, and it was like it's just kind of how I do things. It's how I do videos too, you know? It's like here's the goal, get there as fast and efficiently as possible and as correctly as possible. And I had done that with all of school. I graduated high school early. I graduated college early. That's the other. You and I graduated college around the same time, even though you were 2 years ahead of me. So I actually graduated college. I won the race.
Yeah,
like I was out of school.
You did high school in 3 years and college in 3 years, right? So
yeah. And it felt like, and it was this weird feeling where, like, the analogy I've always used is like you run through the finish line, and then you just look out into this empty field, and you're like, hey, wait, there's nothing over here.
Right. Door closed. Bye-bye. Yep.
Just go that way some more, I guess.
Yeah.
And I don't know, yeah. So most of 2014 was me trying to figure out what I tried joining the Yogscast.
I remember that. Yep.
I submitted a whole resume and sent all of these videos that we've covered and tried to get a job there. I was scheming for ways to get out of the country. Like there was a whole period of time where I was like, the things I thought I was going to do didn't work out. And I want to make movies with my friends, but they got their own stuff going on. I don't know. It was just this kind of weird, like there were I guess ways it could have gone completely differently. While I was at that job, I was listening to Rhett and Link's podcast, Ear Biscuits, had just started coming out. At the time, they were having guests on that were other YouTubers, and those YouTubers were talking about how they had gotten started, and this recurring thing, once they had begun, for whatever reason, something had worked, or like some video had popped off or something, they just were like, all right, well, we got to we can't stop doing it. Like, we just have to do this consistently every single week. And so at some point, I was like, I'm just going to try that. And I set a goal for myself that at the beginning of the next year, 2015, I was going to start like January 1st, and I was going to give myself a full year. And I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to stop playing video games every night. I'm going to turn my days into working on this YouTube channel. I'm going to do it for a year to see if it works. And then if it doesn't, then I know. Then I don't have to worry about it again. I don't have to regret having not tried it. And I think I even mentioned it to you at some point. I was like, if I did this, would you be willing to just to show up to act, like on kind of a moment's notice? And so that was the plan. And then kind of out of nowhere, the company I was working for just disappeared overnight.
Like, I will say that it wasn't exactly out of nowhere. You're working at an Austin startup in 2013, 2014.
Yeah,
they did that. That was part of that was a designated part of their life cycle.
Right. I didn't see it coming at all. Like working there was no indication. And I got a call on a Monday, and he was like, hey, you don't have to come in.
Nice. Yeah.
And it was like around Halloween. And that's when we had the idea, which I'll just mention because it's not on the playlist. Me and Reed had come up with this idea a few times where we had these giant doors on my parents' house, and they had these little openable windows in them. And so we had at one point like come up with this idea, like it'd be really cool to build like these like puppet pieces where you can like have like an arm sticking out of one and an eye sticking out of the other, and you can make it look like there's a monster behind the door like handing candy out. And I don't know why this felt like the year to do it. It was coming up on Halloween. I didn't have anything to do.
Yeah, I think you're just like bubbling over with creative energy. That's it. Like you just had so much like factative power, just the ability. Like you just wanted to to make, but you didn't have anything to make yet, so you made this.
Yeah. I think you're right. That was basically it. That Halloween, we ended up trying it out, and I set up cameras outside, and I think I rented a GoPro and stuff. Yep. I was just like, I'm just gonna try this, and I'm gonna do it right. Like I'm gonna set it up and record it, and And I had this inkling in my head. I actually remember talking to the legal guy at the company and asking him, like, do you know anything about, like, showing people's faces on camera, et cetera, like all these different things? Because I had this weird feeling in my head. This could, if I do it just right, turn into something. Like, this could, like, blow up into, like, people might share this around. And enough that, like, after I filmed it that night, I went upstairs right after the trick-or-treating ended and sat down and started editing. And by the end of November 1st, I put it online. And then I went to bed. And then I got up, and it had 500,000 views because somebody had stuck it on Reddit, and it was on the front page.
The top of Reddit, yep.
I could not believe it.
And I got my 15 minutes here by jumping on into the account and answering comments for about half an hour.
Yeah, no, I remember we had never had that much fan interaction before. I was sitting there the entire morning just responding to comments, and I had to leave. And I called you. I was like, if I give you the login, can you keep responding? Because I don't know. We were just little babies. We didn't know how this worked. Yeah, it was exciting, and like I was like, I don't know if I don't keep talking to them, how do I they might go away.
And to be fair, we actually kept this up for quite a while in different forms. Like
we did.
Community interaction was a strong part of our program, I think. So I was there the Door Monster night. I just kind of missed the Halloween rush. I just hung out with y'all after, which was like kind of disappointing.
That does sound kind of familiar.
It obviously happened like it was supposed to. So
yeah, I mean, I clearly had some sort of weird intuition about it. And then after that, I was like, well, I'm not just gonna wait till January now. Because I just finished listening to all those podcasts, right? That was literally the message of everything. It was like, once the thing kicks off, you start doing it. So I was like, okay, now's when it's happening. The day after, that Monday, I started putting together Minecraft as Intense because I already had it written down.
Nice.
And that's the next video.
Yep,
That'll be next episode.
From here on out, we are dissecting our lives 1 week at a time.
I know. That whole year was weird because I could remember all of it, like so much more clearly than I could like in other times of my life, just because I had a milestone marker down for every week, so I could look at that video and be like, oh, I remember every day around filming that video. I'm not sure I'll ever repeat that either. Like I don't think I'll ever have that same experience again, even if I did the same thing.
It's such a unique thing, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. This episode actually got me. I'm glad we did it this way. This got me rehyped.
I think it's fun going back and just seeing how much of like the DNA of what made us successful was already present in just these random things,
and just knowing that all those things are going to kind of like come back later in some subconscious way.
Yeah,
and really feeling like, just I guess to put it in the context of like larger YouTube, because I did intend to do that with the show. I just kind of haven't been quite as much. We'll be slowing it down, so we'll be able to more. But like at this point, I already kind of felt like I was coming in too late. Like everything felt like it was ending already, which is interesting considering the name of the show that we chose.
It is in fact funny, yep.
We'll be back next week with Minecraft is Intense. Probably be back to like the 30 minutes because I don't see a single video taking longer than that. For now, if you're enjoying this show, if you've liked the last 5 episodes, I think, maybe consider going to patreon.com/doormonster, signing up for $5 a month. You can get access to a bonus podcast with me and Allison that happens once or twice a week, depending on how much time we have. And then if you somehow don't know who we are, maybe go to Door Monster, the channel, and watch some of these videos.
Just if you feel like it. I don't know if that adds anything, but you try.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye-bye.